Well, hi everybody. My name is Verity Thomson, and I'm a fourth-year undergraduate student here at Dalhousie. I'm really glad to come after the two presentations that just went, because I'm going to attempt to sort of give the flip side, sort of the student's perspective of ocean education. I'm a bit older than some of the other students who may be targeted in the ocean school and in your research, but nonetheless, I'm hoping that some of the concepts, like the theoretical things that I'll be talking about, can kind of be traced across the board in ocean education. So I'm actually a liberal arts student, and today I'll be explaining my participation in a research voyage. And I'm going to talk about how this experience impacted me during the research itself, afterwards, and then I'm going to conclude with a couple remarks about the lasting impact of the research process and how that sort of carries on even after the research is done. So you may be asking yourself, what is this liberal arts student doing participating in ocean research? And that's a great question. So I actually have two majors. The first is philosophy, so there is going to be a bit of theory in this presentation. And my second major is environmental sustainability. So through these classes, it was brought to my attention that one of the professors here at Dalhousie, his name is Dr. Al Whitehead, and he does research on a sailboat. And I've long been a sailing enthusiast and was pretty amazed that this was actually something that happened. When I heard about it, I secretly hoped that I would one day get on board this boat, but my rational self was going, there's no way, Verity, you're a philosophy student, you would never get on a marine biologist sailboat. 2 years later, a lucky encounter, a lucky connection brought to my attention that they were actually looking for volunteers for a 3-week voyage in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So I volunteered as quick as I could. It was a bit of a sacrifice for me in terms of a summer job, but it was totally worth it. So I had an amazing experience. I knew I was in for an exciting trip. I was sailing around Newfoundland and Nova Scotia in a fairly small boat, but the impact of this trip was so lasting and changed me in ways I could have really never imagined. So the trip I went on was part of a larger research project, not my research, PhD student, and it was about the northern bottlenose whale. So this is a picture I took of them off the boat. The northern bottlenose whale is an endangered species. There are two very known populations off the coast of Canada. One of them is in Nova Scotia, and the other is, I've even got a map. So one of them is down here, that's Sable Island. So just beside Sable Island, there is a marine protected area called the Gully, and there is a well-documented population of those northern bottlenose whales. And there's another population of northern bottlenose whales way up in the Davis Strait off the coast of Labrador, so like just off the map, like kind of up at the top there. So basically our project was designed to see if there was more northern bottlenose whales between those populations, or to see if those populations kind of moved away from their like home base into the other area. So as I mentioned, my trip was one of 3, and this is very roughly what we did. So we left from St. John's, Newfoundland, and we're following an undersea canyon, so where the light becomes dark. That is where there's a huge, huge drop in depth, and we were roughly sort of following that up. Both of their other habitats are in these massive undersea canyons, so we're sort of following that formation all the way up. So as I mentioned, it's one of 3. So we went from St. John's, we went out, and we went up. So we went all the way up, sort of fairly far north, and then eventually came back down past Newfoundland, ended up in the Gully Marine Protected Area, and then came home to Nova Scotia. So the boat that took us 200 miles offshore, her name is the Lena, and it's so dark, but it's a 40-foot boat called the Valiant 40. So it's only 40 feet long. There was 5 of us living on the boat. They like to have 5. They'll take as few as 4 and as many as 6. So it is pretty small space, but the boat is fairly well equipped for both living and researching. So life on board the ship was quite different from life on land, as you might imagine. The first big thing is that we always had to have someone on watch. So we had 2-hour watch shifts, which were going continuously, but this could mean that you're woken up at about 1:45 in the morning to be on deck until 4 a.m. This was just sort of the realities of life on the boat. There always had to be someone awake. so there was always this rotation going on. It was freezing cold. We were there in August, and I've never been so cold in my life as in the North Atlantic Ocean out there. Seasickness constantly threatened. I thought I would be fine, but it was not at all. Despite all of this, the sailing was truly sublime. I absolutely adored it, but it's not the amazing sailing that was my chief takeaway, even if it was my chief reason for signing up. So, firstly, firstly, I learned the difference between knowing something and having a personal connection with something. I have long known that there's whales and dolphins off the coast of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, even if I maybe didn't learn it in my high school curriculum, but seeing a humpback whale breach 50 meters in front of me, or having a dozen dolphins following the boat for an hour, are experiences that I can never forget. So the animals that brought us out on this trip, the northern bottlenose whales, we didn't actually see them until the third last day of our voyage. But there was a fair number of other creatures to keep us occupied in the meantime. So these are pilot whales. Almost from our first day offshore, we saw pilot whales. The Newfoundlanders know them affectionately as potheads. So that's their sort of name in Newfoundland, but pilot whales. I think the pinnacle of our experience with the pilot whales was when a pod of somewhere between 70 and 100 animals followed our boat for more than an hour. Their echolocation clicks were so loud that the people below deck could hear it through the walls of the boat and came up to see what was going on, thought that maybe the computer had been tossed over and the speakers were yelling, but no, it was just about 70 or 80 of these creatures. So it's hard to see in this, but almost every little black dot you're seeing in the background are all of these pilot whales. It was an unforgettable experience to be riding the waves in Elena and looking around and seeing almost 100 other creatures doing the same. We also saw a number of species of bird. Often these were our only companions for sometimes days on end out when you're 200 miles offshore. So we did see a couple species. And on the eve of my 21st birthday, I got the gift of seeing a pod of killer whales, or orcas. They hung around for about 40 minutes. We were able to get right close to them. At one point, one of the orcas came under the boat and came up right beside the boat, and I screamed because I thought they were going to capsize us. It was crazy. It was amazing, though. On a few occasions, we did see humpback whales. However, they were very difficult to get a picture, and I don't have one. I'm sorry. As well, we saw sourbees beaked whales from a distance. As well, we saw 3 species of dolphin. We would often see dolphins sort of far off in the distance as kind of these little fins. You could kind of see them playing around. But on our last day aboard, we were headed back towards the shores of Nova Scotia, and there was a pod of about 25 to 30 dolphins that came to kind of check us out. They were hanging around for a good 30 minutes. I had just finished my watch and was able to creep up to the bow and be bow riding. There was about 6 whales that were bow riding off. So they were just about a foot underneath me. It was really, really incredible. So I had many experiences with all these whales and dolphins. And during and after these encounters, I was seized by a desire to know all I could about them. I am not a biology student and don't pretend to be, but I picked up those biology textbooks on board and read them as much as I could. I drilled the scientists on board with me. I just wanted to know everything I could. And it is the strength of these personal connections that lingers far beyond any news article or YouTube video. The personal connections are what changes lives and ensures that conservation efforts are continued long after the research is finished. Even today, as I look through my pictures or relate these experiences to you, I can still feel the power of them. I can never forget the mix of awe, delight, and terror at seeing these creatures so close at hand. How can I forget how long an orca is when it's surfaced right next to the boat? I'm permanently sensitive to anything I hear about the Gully Marine Protected Area after having visited. And as soon as I hear of pilot whales being beached in Newfoundland, I instantly have an image in my head. I came home to describing to anyone who would listen the richness of the freezing cold and inhospitable North Atlantic Ocean. So as I came back, I was immediately drawn to opportunities to do with ocean education. I am signed up to volunteer with the Ecology Action Center as part of their Living Shorelines project. I work with young children also through the Halifax Regional School Board, and I work with the sort of primary school students, and I have been trying to incorporate ocean literacy into some of my programming. I work in French, so trying anything that will get them to talk, but they like to talk about oceans, right? So trying to incorporate those ideas, trying to get them thinking about it and engaged with it. I'm very excited to hear about other things that are coming out as well. So the richness of the personal connections which have fostered for me this desire to educate others and to pursue ocean conservation, this personal connections were only made possible through the community I had around me on board. The community was able to support me through the steep intellectual and personal learning curves, giving me the space to grow while the support to try. Intellectually, I was the least knowledgeable on board. I had not taken a science class since high school, and I knew very little about marine mammals, research methods, or even sort of how the science world operated generally. The very kind scientists on board patiently explained all this to me and answered humbly my unceasing questions. They were good at sort of answering my questions without making me feel stupid for asking them. And their humility allowed my natural curiosity to flourish. And they were unafraid to show me the mysteries of the ocean, which even they could only guess at. My personal challenges on board were great as well. I was quite ill at a number of different moments throughout our voyage, and I had to sort of swallow up my pride and say, sorry, I can't do this, I need help. I had to relinquish a lot of my duties and responsibilities, which they were usually very, very happy to take. On shore, I'm used to being, at the top of my class in liberal arts and also at the top of my physical strength. I'm always sort of proud of trying to do my best and to pitch in my fair share. But on board, my total lack of scientific knowledge, combined with often my complete lack of physical strength, meant that I couldn't even putting in my fair share, let alone anything else. So it was this support of the community, of the friendships, and of the other people on board, which allowed me to grow, so that instead of wallowing in shame and self-pity, I could learn from these experiences, continue on, and to have these exceptional personal experiences with all of the mammals. So in conclusion, ocean research can allow for personal connections to be formed. In my case, these connections were formed with these exceptional experiences with the marine mammals, but these connections were only made possible because when I encountered challenges, I was supported by the community around me on board Elena. And these personal connections that endure and drive me to further ocean research. These are not quantifiable results. They'll not be published in a journal, so instead I decided to present them to you. What better place than at a conference about ocean education to show the invisible but crucially important results of researching. You as teachers and researchers of oceans must be awake to the possibility of research not being about results, but about changed people. From what I saw, ocean research is difficult, and often it seems that nobody is listening, that they're done, they've had enough sort of naysaying, and that they don't want any more information. But let me encourage you that ocean research can forge these personal connections, and that they do endure. And this is what makes it possible for someone like me with no scientific background to become an active ambassador for ocean conservation. Thank you very much.